What's up guys, this is Jules and this is what I'm running on my Stamplar in PvP for the Wolf Hunter patch. So as you can see, we're a Red Guard Templar. I also do play Orc Templar for Stamplar now, so I'm going to go through just a couple of the differences between those two races. So max Maj 13k, max health 24, max stam 35 almost. Stam recovery we're at 1366, I'll explain that in just a sec. Weapon damage, I believe we're at 38 on the two-hander and 36 on the dual wield. So for the stam recovery at 13, I used to run at like 1700, which was as low as I wanted to go, was like 1700 a couple of months ago. And that was on a Red Guard. And I feel actually kind of silly for running that much now, because now it seems like you just don't need that much recovery, especially on a Red Guard. I got used to playing the Orc. I've been playing the Orc for about a couple of weeks, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I just recently race changed my EP Stamplar to Orc. And I'm just a lot more used to heavy attacking and just playing like that and having a lot less recovery on the Orc. So when you get on a Red Guard, it's like you have way too much recovery if you're at 1700. So I'm running the Warrior on the Red Guard. On the Orc, I would recommend doing pretty much everything the same, but running Serpent instead, because if you're running Warrior on the Orc, you're going to be at like 1,000 to 1,100 stam recovery, which in my opinion is just going to be too low. Spell resistance, we are at, inside of our rune, 23 and 21, and we're at 5k crit resist. As I said, we're running the Warrior on the Red Guard, the Serpent on the Orc. And we're running this food. It's called Artaeum Takeaway Broth. It's actually kind of a newer food. Gives us max health, health recovery, max stam, and stam recovery. It's actually a pretty OP food. It's pretty crazy. The health recovery is really good on the Orc. Obviously, it's good on both Red Guard and Orc, but it's kind of an expensive food. It's like 5 or 6k a pop, so if you can't afford it, you can just use Dubious, but this one's just going to be a little bit better. It gives you a little bit more stats. Alright, so hopping into the actual build, as you can probably guess from 5k crit resist, we are running Impreg. Impreg is just going to be giving us health, stam, magicka, and of course 2500 crit resist. I run Impreg on the body, and I run 2 heavy, so 1 chest, 1 legs, and yeah. And then I run it in all Impen. I run 7 Impen on both the Orc and the Red Guard. A lot of people think that Impreg should not be run in the Impen trait. Sorry, I always get like tongue twisted with those two. But basically, a lot of people think that you should run like Well Fitted or Sturdy or something else, but people are still operating off the assumption that crit resist has a cap of like 2500 or 3500 or something. And that's just simply not true. Crit resist does not have any cap whatsoever, except for it cannot be reduced below base damage. So for instance, if you have a skill that does 5k, at crit it would do 7500. If you had 2500 crit resist, you would break even, and your crit would hit for the same as your non-crit. If you had above 2500, if you had 2600 crit resist, theoretically you should hit your non-crit for 4900. However, you cannot do that because it will not reduce below the base damage. I don't know if I explained that properly, but I'm pretty sure that's the way that it works. And basically, I see it in Cyrodiil. Impreg is an incredible set. It's been an incredible set for years. I don't know why people haven't been running it. It's been very good for a very long time. It's kind of OP in like heavy armor, but in medium armor, I think it's totally justifiable. But anyways, so we're running Triglyph, Triglyph, and Triglyph for a total of 3 on the Red Guard. So 3 Triglyphs and 4 stam on the Red Guard. On the Orc, I'm running all stam. And then we're running Bloodspawn, just Impen, Impen. And then of course it's going to be giving us stam recovery, and then a 6% chance to get ultimate and to get that resistance, and Bloodspawn is just really great. If you want to run a different monster set, you can run that new, what the heck is it called? It's called Baluric or something. Balorg? Okay, I'm sorry I like completely butchered that. This set is going to be absolutely incredible. The only thing with this set is that it's going to be, you're going to be very squishy if you drop Bloodspawn. Not very squishy, but you're going to be noticeably squishier than if you have Bloodspawn on. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to, you know, maybe change some CP around or do something else. This is a good option if you don't want to run Bloodspawn for some weird reason, if you don't like Bloodspawn. And Troll King is also a good one, but that's kind of if you're just like cheesy. But in my opinion, I think Bloodspawn is going to be the best for now. If I can figure out a way to get that Balorg on and maintain the same level of tankability, then I will. But in the meantime, Bloodspawn is going to be where it's at. So like I said, so 7 Stam for the Orc, and 3 Triglyph, and 4 Stam for the Redguard. So the second set that we are running is Automaton. On the jewelry, I'm running all robust, all weapon damage. I am considering changing one of these to Swift. Swift is a very, very, very strong jewelry trait. I'm considering it, but I'm just not sure yet. I see that Swift is very good. I can see just by trying to fight Nightblades who have like 3 Swift on and just like run circles around me, making me look like an idiot. Swift is very strong, and it's probably very strong also for just, you know, classes like Stamplar that don't have the mobility of Stamsork, or just for people who are trying to small scale and run away from Zergs or whatever, you know what I mean? So Swift is a potential for one of these. I wouldn't change more than one, most likely, because your stamp pool really isn't that high. You're only at 34. So I would never want to go beneath 30, so I wouldn't want to do all 3, and I don't know, I prefer to have a good amount of stam, so I just probably would only do 1. But you could do 3 Swift if you wanted. You could do some infused. For now, they're just robust, but, you know, I might throw on 1 Swift and check it out. We complete the 5-piece of the Automaton on the Greatsword. This is going to be our front bar. I know it's kind of weird. I'll explain in just a second. So our front bar is our Greatsword of Automaton. Automaton's going to be giving us weapon crit, stamina, weapon damage, and 386 weapon damage to your physical damage abilities, which is basically everything on Stamplar. Back bar is going to be Master Dual Wield. I'm running the Axe for the bleed in Nirnhoned, and then the dagger in Infused. And we have Disease on the Axe and weapon damage on the dagger. The reason that we're running the Master, well, not the reason we're running the Master Dual Wield, but the reason that we're running Dual Wield on the back bar is because this rending tick, so just to explain a little bit, the Master's Dual Wield, it buffs your rending tick, so Twin Slashes, which is rending. It buffs this by 1500 each tick, which is very, very strong. Very, very strong for damage, okay? But the thing is, I was always under the presumption that you needed to have that 2-piece if you wanted each tick. So for each tick, I was thinking that, you know, it would check and see if you were on the right bar, if you were on the bar with the Masters, and if you were, then you would get the tick increase, and if you weren't, then you wouldn't. However, it's actually all applied when you apply the rending, and it buffs all of the ticks, even if you're off of the bar, if that makes sense. So now you can just apply and swap. So it makes sense to have, you know, just have it as a buff bar, because realistically, you're just trying to use that rending as a buff. You know, or not like a buff, but you know what I mean? You're just using it. You just want that Master Dual Wield for the increase in rending. So if that's all you want it for, then why not just put rending on the back bar? And then you put Automaton on your front bar to get an additional 5-piece. So rather than doing what we were doing, which was Automaton on the front piece, or on the front bar, so 5 Automaton and then just some random 2-hander, and rather than doing Agility and Master and then some random 2-hander, it's better to do the Automaton on the front bar, because now it's 5. Now the 2-handers are worth 2. So now you get Automaton 5-piece, and then you also get the Masters, which ends up equating to just an absolute ridiculous amount of damage. It's just an absolute ridiculous amount of damage. So you're looking at like 3,800 weapon damage. Okay, that's base. That's with just brutality. That's no modifiers whatsoever except for just brutality, which you will have up 100% of the time. Okay, then we have another 500 from our infused. So that's going to put us at what, like just over 400, 4,100. And then you also have to consider that this is not showing Automaton, which is another 400. And it's not considering continuous attack, which is another 20%. And it's not considering the bleed of the Master's Axe, or the 5% of the sword, or the 1,500 each tick. Just trust me on this one, it's an absolute ridiculous amount of damage to combine all these sets. And with the the Impreg, I always screw that up. With the Impreg and the Blood Spawn, you have tank ability. You can get your sustain just through, you know, your food and just heavy attacks and medium armor, and then you just get an absolute ridiculous amount of damage in the jewelry and the weapons. So that's the entire build. Skills, we're running Biting Jabs, obviously, for the crit, and this is just going to be our main, just, you know, spammable. It's also going to proc Burning Light. Rally is going to be our major brutality and our burst heal. Power of the Light is going to store damage, and it's going to just be kind of similar to like an execute. You know, you put it on, you store up damage, and then it pops for, you know, combined to copy damage. Binding Javelin is going to be our CC. Alternatively, you could run Dizzying Swing if that's what you like better, but I personally don't like the cast time of Dizzy Swing. I find it very clunky and annoying. So you could run Dizzy Swing if you want to, but I personally run Binding Javelin, even though Binding Javelin is also kind of trash because it misses all of the time. And it also just doesn't make any sense for Stamplar because Stamplar is a melee class and this has a 41 meter range. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to throw your target away from you when you're a melee class. I don't know who designed this skill as the Templar class CC, but they don't really understand how Templar works, I don't think. Anyways, sorry not to get off on like a tangent, but okay, so then Resolving Vigor, obviously for our hot. Dawnbreaker is going to be our CC. The other thing that's great, Dawnbreaker is going to be our ultimate, which is also a CC. The other thing that's great about Two-Hander is Battle Rush is going to be giving us 30% stam recovery for 10 seconds after killing a target, which you should be killing a good amount of targets. This is great on Stamplar in particular, who struggle with sustain. So that's a great two-hand ability, or two-hand passive to have on your front bar, because you're going to be killing people on your front bar. So you're going to actually be getting this. Whereas before, it was on your back bar, which the chances of you getting a kill on your back bar when you're just buffing and stuff is not very good. The other one is the follow-up, which is going to be an additional 10% damage. And the best time to use this would be, you know, you have your rally up, you have your power of the light up, you have your rending up, you're jabbing, and they're at like 40 to 30% health. You get a full heavy attack off, and then pop the Dawnbreaker. The initial damage of the Dawnbreaker will eat that follow-up 10%. Like, it's not going to buff the Dawnbreaker's dot, but it's going to buff the initial damage of the Dawnbreaker, which unbuffed we're looking at like 16k, and buffed we're looking at, you know, much more than that. Back bar, we're looking at Shuffle, Major Evasion, and Snare Removal. Obviously not as good as Forward Momentum, but just cannot afford to run Forward Momentum because the heals, and cannot afford the sustain of Heavy. So that's why we're forced into Medium, but it's really honestly fine because you're still really tanky and do a crap ton of damage, so it's not a big deal. But Shuffle is just the necessary thing that you have to have. It's, you know, if you run Forward Momentum and then you go back to Shuffle, you'll know that like Shuffle is just so trash compared to Forward Momentum, but it's necessary. Then Rending Slashes, this is going to be our dot, and it's also going to work off our masters like we talked about. Channeled Focus is going to be our Major Resolve, Major Ward. It's going to be giving us back 120 Magicka every 0.5 seconds, and Magicka recovery and just all recovery is calculated in 2 seconds. So this is 480 Magicka recovery. We use that for Purifies. Extended Ritual is just going to purify 5 different abilities, and then Repentance is going to give us Minor Fortitude, Minor Endurance, Minor Intellect, which is just recoveries across the board on this bar, and also obviously repenting the bodies for extra stam recovery. Remembrance is going to be used in clutch situations where you need to heal. This heals for so much. I don't understand how it heals. Like, it's so good. It's so clutch. It comes in handy so often. So that's the entire skill bar. Just to hop into CP real quick. Nothing here. 66 Master at Arms, 72 Thaumaturge, 53 Precise Strikes, 5 Piercing, 64 Mighty, 61 Ironclad, 24 Resistant, 40 Thick-Skinned, 49 Hardy, 49 Ellie Defender, 37 Quick Recovery, 56 Warlord, 64 Mooncalf, 19 Arcanist, 49 Tenacity, 3 Befoul, 56 Tumbling, and 13 Shadow Ward. You can do your CP however you want. That's just how I did them. Spent a lot of time optimizing the damage CP and the survivability CP and the regen CP. You really want to not be wasting your CP into just things that you don't need. So like you block on Stamplar, but not that much. So you shouldn't be having a shit ton into Shadow Ward. Arcanist is nice, but you don't want to like overstack into it because you already have channeled, and then you're also getting another 5% from that. Sprinter, you don't want to be wasting your time on that. And then Tenacity, you want to make sure that you're putting a good amount of points into this because Stamplar is going to be heavy attacking, especially if you're on Orc. You're going to be heavy attacking quite a bit. That's going to be a huge source of sustain for you. So that's pretty much the entire build. Just want to give a big thank you also to Ari for helping me optimize, and also just figuring out stuff with the Automaton versus Ravagers, and just for optimizing CP and stuff like that. If you guys have any questions, I think that you guys will like the build a lot. Any comments, concerns, insults, whatever you have to throw at me can be left in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day and have great PvP. All right, bye.